Oh, Greymon. You will always be one of the first decks that I look at doing for new sets. With BT15, one of the major power players for the upcoming regionals and Ultimate Cups is going to be Leviamon X. And while you can prepare for this particular matchup, there's no guarantee that you'll even play against this deck as you climb the tables in your rounds. While true, it may have the most representation, sometimes by sheer luck, you dodge this deck. One advantage with Greymon has with Leviamon X is that you have multiple ways of protection, not just with your lower end, but your top end as well. For Greymon decks, one thing that is severely lacking is draw power. In a lot of my playtesting, this deck struggled against the most against Garurumon and Mirage for a while, mainly because of the constant unsuspends. However, with Greymon decks moving into BT15, you will have to drop that mentality of trying to keep the deck purity Wargreymon or Blackwargreymon. At this point, you'll have to combine the two for various matchups you'll see. Because of this, BT5 Koromon is the egg of choice to help improve your ways of drawing cards. You could run a single copy of BT9 Koromon for the extra DP. Frankly, if you foresee security control being a major competitor, having that 5th egg could help. But for normal play, sticking a 4 for the consistent draw power is good enough. Agumon wise, we keep it simple. 4 copies from BT12 for the add of a Greymon or Omnimon, and a Tamer with Tai Kamiya in its name. 4 copies of BT9 Agumon X for the X Evolution Jump, and the potential add of a Greymon or Omnimon and the X-antibody option card. It also serves as a potential secondary level of protection if you have 2 stacks of Greymon already. And of course, BT14 Agumon for the free evo up to a level 4 Greymon if you have a Tai Kamiya Tamer in play. One interesting change, as I was looking at recent topping lists, was the inclusion of Gotsumon as a floodgate. This list was represented for Latin America's pre-restriction Ultimate Cup, but while successful for that event, after testing, even against Numamon, I felt Greymon can handle the deck without losing the consistency. Greymon wise, it's mandatory at this point to run the BT11 Greymon X for the cheap reduced cost, and also the Greymon X's from BT9 for the protection. For the rest of your Greymons, it's entirely up to you on how you want to do it. Starter deck Greymon gives you that extra +1 security check. BT5 Greymon can recover you a memory whenever you Digivolve, and have explicitly Agumon in the sources. And BT12 Greymon for playing Tai Kamiya if you do not have one in play. Frankly, BT5 Greymon can be so much value for the fact that in combination with promoting BT14 Agumon and having BT12 Tai Kamiya in play, that is a net +2 memory play when you free evo into this Greymon. But that extra security check can be needed at times. I heavily experimented with the level 5 lineup for a long time, until reverting it for the most part back to its original. My original build ran 4 MetalGreymons from BT12 for the raid, and playing a Tamer, 1 promo for extra protection, and 3 BT9 MetalGreymon X's for the extra security checks. While testing, I looked into using Skull Greymon from BT14 for deleting bodies, and recurring Agumon and the EX1 variant for aggressive security checks. One problem with this was ultimately it was too inconsistent for this particular build, and your opponent can play around it. In addition, because of your purple Skull Greymons, this limited also what Greymons could go into it, being BT14 and the starter deck Ace variant. Alas, I reverted back to my original lineup and adjusted the ratio slightly with another effect protection promo. Though in test matches with Machine Dramon, the MetalGreymon X from BT11 might be useful for helping against DP reduction and protection against Digivolve. Which takes me to level 6's, the real toolbox part of the deck. Traditionally, I've gone 4 Raid War Greymons from BT12, because the unsuspend is powerful in its own right to potentially clear not 1, not 2 security, but potentially up to 6 in one turn. Pending you have security +1 Greymons or BT1 Tai Kamiya or MetalGreymon X in combination with one of the other cards. Additionally, sometimes your opponent might have a body that's too hard to deal with and you don't have enough memory to climb up. As a result, I've one-teched a single copy of BT14 Wargreymon, but this Digimon is not mandatory for the build. Wargreymon X though, is definitely used to clear your opponent's Digimon at the end of attack, or even X-evoing out from a Raid Wargreymon to start not only checking just security, but gaining memory as well. But with so many different matchups, now easily getting around this, ultimately this is where I bit the bullet, and the easiest solution to fix this was adding Wargreymon X. This Digimon cannot X-evo off of your Wargreymons, so this is more dependent on you attacking with MetalGreymon, raiding into an opponent's Digimon before going into Black Wargreymon X with the power of X-antibody. Doing so can help you not only clear security, but at your unsuspend phase, clear a Digimon with the lowest play cost. Due to these adjustments for level 6s, the level 7s were also refined from my previous 3 Omni lineup to just 2. One for Blitz and having protection from bounce and deletion based effects, and the Omnimon X-antibody from BT10 that can be the game finisher if you can get your opponent down to 1 security beforehand. Option card wise, one single tech card I've been trying is Trident Gaia. While it does cost 8 memory, the fact that Leviamon being the most popular deck in the format, and Alliance also making some waves, can give this card a lot of value. Being if you delete a Digimon with 13,000 DP or more, your opponent trashes their top security. Otherwise, your remaining option cards are largely for memory stabilization, cost reduction, and evoing mid-attack. Red Memory Boost covers some additional memory and gleans 4 cards to add 1 red Digimon. Meaning in total there are 14 total cards that this deck whips on in the form of your options, Tamers, and Omnimons. Offense training for the gleaning of 2 cards for anything red, option card and Tamers included, which whiffs on 7 cards total, in the form of Blitz Omnimon, Omnimon X-antibody, X-antibody itself, and BT12 Tai Kamiya. My only considerations right now are dropping the BT14 Wargreymon altogether for a Black Wargreymon or another Black Wargreymon X, which would probably adjust my X-antibody count to 1 more for the mid-attack Evo raid. Other ideas would be to add a single copy of a Delicate Plan, if you're predicting security control becoming more popular again after Worlds. Option cards like Chaos Degradation and Long Key Adastocto can bypass that protection, since it is being sent to security. Finally, Tamers in the form of 3 BT12 Tai Kamiya for blocker and plus 1000 DP at the start of my main phase for an Agumon or Greymon Digimon, and 2 BT1 Tai Kamiyas for the memory fixing and additional security attack plus 1 if I have 4 or more sources in the Digimon's Digivolution cards. Honestly, BT12 Tai is the only funky element of this deck, being a black Tamer. But in looking at black variants, you miss out on really utilizing the red Agumons then for the free Evo into Greymon. Strengths and weakness wise, the deck performs very well against all forms of decks, out aggroing decks like Machine Dramon in a 50-50 matchup assuming they don't have Chaos Dramon set up very well, and can even be passively deleting Digimon in the Garurumon matchups. With the layers of protection, there are ways to get around Leviamon X as well, but largely when it comes to this deck, speed and collecting the pieces you need are where it isn't as good as other decks. Ideal opening hands for this deck are going to be BT14 Agumon with any Tamer, and a Greymon card. Sometimes you may have 2 pieces, sometimes you may have none, but that's why you can mulligan or utilize cards like Red Memory Boost and offense training to potentially fix your hand. Depending on matchup, you could see yourself evoing in the back into an Agumon X because you simply need to start your chain. But if you're in a slower matchup and you have more of your chain pieces ready, putting yourself behind a turn might not be as bad, especially if you find the Agumon next turn to guarantee that protection. Generally speaking, do you plan on playing a Greymon toolbox build for Regionals or Ultimate Cup? While it is a fan favorite, Worlds has shown that there is still potential with older decks. Maybe one of these events will give Greymon a rise to the top again since BT11 and BT12. This is DIGI-PANDA, logging out.